So around the anime community, everyone is talking about how they think One Punch Man season 3 episode 1 is horrible. And I think there's an important distinction that needs to be made that One Punch Man season 3 episode 1 is disappointing, but it's not horrible. It's not the worst thing ever. They're still adapting One Punch Man, which is a manga that you guys all enjoy. So the material is there. It's not like they cut out material from the story. We're still progressing with the story. And that makes it interesting, at least for me, because I haven't read it. Like, if you read the manga, maybe it's a lot more horrible because you don't know what's going to happen with the plot. But for me, it was still interesting to see the developments and how, like, Garou is back outside now and has to hunt down a villain. And just the whole interaction at Saitama's house, how everyone's just nonchalantly, like, chilling. And then Blizzard's like, guys, there are these monsters and they've taken out my whole team. We need to do something. All of that's still interesting. It's just the fact that it could have been better. So for me, I think we need to replace the word horrible or the worst with disappointing. Because if you were to say to me that One Punch Man season 3 episode 1 is the most disappointing anime of 2025, then yeah, I could agree with that for you. If you're a really big manga fan, sure. But for you to say it's the worst one or the worst of the season, I would disagree with you. Now, let me just go into some things that I mentioned right there. There was a scene here that was quite funny to me. Bang is just laying out with his arse out. Like, I think as he's doing acupuncture. And then you see the shot and it's like Genos, Saitama, and then Ban is just there. And at one point he just kind of flaps his body and I was like, what the fuck am I watching? And then the other dude, old dude behind him is just staring at his butt as well at a certain point. And I'm just like, what is that? That whole scene in the house was just hilarious to me still, especially because Blizzard, she's just like, man, guys, we need to do something, and her scene is probably the most animated scene in the entire episode, where she's just like spazzing out because everybody's like relaxing. But the scene before that of her like being freaked out was just this still shot that lingered on for a bit too long for me. So I guess that was a bit of a disappointment to me. In terms of the art style though, I think this looks pretty damn good. I think the lighting and the directing of the shots is pretty interesting as well. So I think in terms of that, it looks good. Now, for me, because I'm not a manga reader, I'm curious to see what Garo's gonna do. Like, this dude was just injured, like, incredibly, because he ran the gauntlet, basically, with a bunch of heroes. Remember, like, all throughout season 2, he was killing a bunch of, like, not killing, but beating up a bunch of heroes that were ranged from B to S rank. I think he took out a couple of, like, lower S ranks, right? And then there's the 8v1 he had, where he was already injured before that by the dog hero, but then he did an 8v1 where he managed to beat them, and then he faced Genos, and then he faced the two old men. Now he rested and he's just walking outside going to take another hero, and all he got was a little rest. He didn't even get time to eat, or just like it was like a nap basically. And now he's gonna go out and battle someone else, and I'm just like, dude, like, I thought they were just gonna give him the monsterification and then be done with it, and then he's gonna be like a big boss in the background. Everyone's gonna go into the monster the monster crib, should I say, or the monster lair, and then start beating it up everybody, and then the final boss is Garou. I thought it was going to do that sort of thing, but they were just like, no, we see you're strong, but we want you to prove your worth to us, so bring us the head of a hero. So he's out like wandering about, and that's a sort of interesting development for me too. Besides that, we're just seeing all of the other heroes assemble. So, for example, the big Bon Clay looking dude, he's just gone out of the prison. And then that was actually a scratch that. The funniest scene of this episode was when he got given a sweater by one of the other prison inmates. I was like, dude, I don't know what it was, bro. That had me rolling. He was like, here's the sweater. And then he just touches it. Like, that was pretty funny. So, and then we see the other heroes. There's like this sort of idol guy who is, he's apparently an A rank, but he has the power of an S rank. Like he said, oh, the only reason why I'm not an S rank is because I don't want to, basically, he doesn't want to take on the extra responsibilities, I guess, of being an S rank. So he decided to stay as an A rank. And that's an interesting thing with the One Punch Man ranking system. I feel as though it's a lot more political, or there's a lot more bureaucracy behind it than whoever has the raw power. Obviously, Saitama, his whole thing is an S rank, right? Saitama's whole thing, he's a B rank, and he's actually the most powerful hero, or one of the most powerful heroes, so he should be an S rank. But they don't know about Saitama's power level. But we see even with Blizzard, right? She could easily be an A rank, but she chooses to stay as a B rank. And then there was that allotment of heroes that faced Garou last season. I think some of them could potentially be really low S ranks, but they weren't able to get to the S rank, so they just stayed as A's. And then this guy is staying as an A rank as well. So I feel as though it's interesting that potentially an A rank could like beat up an S rank, but they just didn't choose to advance up. So the dynamic he brought to the show was sort of interesting to me as well. And then Atomic Samurai, he has his whole squad and they're coming in too. But the funny thing is that black dude. Now, I don't want to give any spoilers because some people watching this may be anime onlys, but I'll be curious to see if the big reveal for him happens this season. And I'm going to avoid Twitter because Twitter will be an absolute cesspool when they reveal his whole deal. Because when I read it, I thought it was kind of insane. But I know that people on Twitter are going to take that super seriously. And that's going to be a whole another Dandadan season 1 recoloring drama, which I will cover on this channel because I don't mind getting some bread off of that. But I'm gonna give my real opinion on the thing. But yeah, that'll be interesting. But I'll avoid Twitter for that. But overall, I would say that this was a fun episode to watch. But if you're disappointed and you're bummed out about it, I can totally understand where you're coming from because it should be better than this. I know we're in the whole age of the super adaptation because it started with Demon Slayer and then we got JJK, we got Chainsaw Man was an amazing adaptation. Dandadan is a super adaptation as well, man. Like, come on. So I know we've got these really welly adapted shows now and people want something on that level, and One Punch Man has Yusuke Murata. He's such a highly esteemed guy in the manga industry alongside One because, Mob Psycho. I know people wanted something on that level, which is the reason why they're annoyed, and I can understand that, but I just feel as though it was fun to watch. That's just my opinion. But I've rambled for long enough. Tell me your thoughts down below on episode 1 of One Punch Man season 3 episode 1. Catch me on Sunday for the episode 2 review and a whole bunch of other content. I'm just putting out a lot of content now because there's a lot of stuff I want to cover. So catch you guys next time. Bye.